Welcome back to Snetterton for the second race of the weekend for the Radical Challenge Championship. Still ideal conditions as well. A slight breeze, but the sun able to poke its nose through the clouds. And the grid is lining up. Oliver Barker, race 1 winner on pole position. Steve Burgess, the reigning champion, alongside. Row 2 of the grid is Richard Baxter and Dominic Jackson, with Mark Richards and Jack Manchester on row number 3. Jason Rishover has Peter Tyler for company on row 4. And it's Christian Jeffrey, an ex-British GT racer, Sean Byrne, who is there on the 5th row of the grid. The cars are lining up. The 5-second board has been held aloft. The red lights are about to come on, which they do now. The revs rise, and as the lights go out, it's a good start from both front row men by the look of things. Both Oliver Barker and Steve Burgess matching each other for pace as we ride on board with Jack Lang leading the championship, but only 15th on the grid for this second race of the weekend. So work to do for Jack Lang, and well, he's already started to try and carve his way through the field out of Ritchie's and up towards the braking area for Wilson for the first time. Oliver Barker leads the race. Steve Burgess in second place. Jack Manchester side by side with Sean Byrne, and has just got the light blue car up into third place. Sean Byrne now needs to try and defend fourth place, because trying to sneak his way through up the inside is Dominic Jackson. The two of them side by side round through Palmer. That orange car there just going through shot is Jack Lang, the championship leader, having started down in 15th position. Well, he's made a bit of progress, but still has got a raft of cars to overtake as we ride on board with him in towards the braking area for Agostini. That's another one picked off as he turns his way in towards the left-hander, picks up the throttle and accelerates his way up towards Hamilton on the first lap of this race. So up the short straight in towards the left-hand flick at Hamilton. That then brings them in towards the right-hander at Oggies. After they've come out of Oggies, they're up towards this next corner coming up, which is the right-hander at Williams. That brings them onto the Bentley Straight for the first time. Oliver Barker leads, Steve Burgess second, the light blue car Jack Manchester in third place. And there, that light blue car with its pink flashes is Richard Baxter. He started third. He's dropped to 6th by the look of things in the early stages of this one as they all head down the Bentley Straight. Oliver Barker not under pressure from Steve Burgess, but in third place Jack Manchester is under pressure from the all-black car number 4 in the hands of the man from Lincoln, Dominic Jackson, who turns his way through Brundle, through the slightly tighter right-hander at Nelson, and then the short straight that brings him up towards the daunting bomb hole. As for Jack Lang, well, he's still looking to try and work his way through the order at the wheel of car number 2. He's up behind Stuart Maloney at this stage. But Oliver Barker looking to try and make good his escape through Murray's Corner, picks up the throttle, up through the gears as he heads on to the centre straight, completing the first lap of the race and having daylight between himself, not a great deal, but daylight importantly between himself and Steve Burgess as they go over the start-finish line. Jack Manchester is the cork in the bottle, really. He's got right behind him Dominic Jackson, and then the next of the black cars as well, as Dominic Jackson has a quick look at the inside, heading in towards Ritchie's Corner. Couldn't quite get the job done there, but he was certainly keen to try and make his presence known, and the difficulty is that overtaking manoeuvre didn't work, and that has allowed Mark Richards now to try and squeeze his way through as Jack Manchester goes side by side with Stuart Maloney. Almost contact between the pair of them as they head through Wilson, and also now side by side through Palmer. That's Mark Richards, who has got himself through and ahead of the black car of Dominic Jackson. So Dominic Jackson looking to gain a place, has ultimately lost one and is now under pressure from Sean Byrne, but Mark Richards still running side by side with Dominic Jackson. There's almost contact between the pair of them. They break as late as they can for Agostini, and Dominic Jackson has left the door open here for Sean Byrne to try and squeeze his way through. The Irishman can't quite manage to do so, and they're still side by side, Mark Richards and Dominic Jackson. Something has to give, and eventually Jackson slots himself through as the middle car of those 3 black cars. So Mark Richards, Dominic Jackson and Sean Byrne all still absolutely together, and that has allowed now Jack Manchester to breathe a sigh of relief there. The third place car has disappeared up the road a shade more. Out of Williams onto the Bentley Straight they work their way. Cars trying to pick up the toe off the other, but certainly the leading pair are not close enough so as to slipstream each other. Jack Manchester in third place is starting to get away, and then everybody wanting to be fourth. It is still car number 52, Mark Richards, that sits there in fourth place, but just look at the queue of cars that sits behind him. Dominic Jackson, Sean Byrne, Richard Baxter, then the next of the cars which is going to be going through. That is going to be the car of Jason Rishover. That is the next of those in the train, but even after Jason Rishover, there's car after car after car, and well, for the moment Mark Richards is very much the cork in the bottle, under pressure from Dominic Jackson, who equally as much is under pressure from the number 18 car of Sean Byrne that sits directly behind, and Sean Byrne has got Richard Baxter's light blue and pink car very close for company as they head onto the centre straight. This is the fight for 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th places over the start-finish line, with the 8th place car of Jason Rishover not that far behind either. So safely out of Ritchie's, onto the brakes at Wilson Corner. Richard Baxter closes up right onto the coattails of the Irishman, but Sean Byrne just is able to get the car turned into the apex in time, so nothing doing for Richard Baxter at that corner at least, and then they flick their way through the left-hander at Palmer and start to accelerate their way down the short straight that will bring them up towards the braking area for Agostini once more. So onto the brakes, in towards the left-hander they'll go. Dominic Jackson taking a wide sweep in towards Agostini so as to try and straighten up the exit a little bit, to try and hopefully get a bit more momentum on the very short straight that brings them up towards Hamilton, to at least try and stay in touch with the car that's currently in fourth position. Raising the dust though is Dominic Jackson in his efforts to try and keep right up onto terms with Mark Richards. And now a critical corner coming up Williams. If you can get a good exit coming off Williams, that gives you all of the momentum down the Bentley straight, but Dominic Jackson just isn't quite close enough, and if anything, Sean Byrne is slightly closer to him than he is to Mark Richards ahead. So down the Bentley straight they'll go, the lead advantage stretching all of the time between Oliver Barker and Steve Burgess. Equally as much Steve Burgess looking very comfortable now in second place, because Jack Manchester is just that little bit too far away. This is the fourth place car here. Mark Richards, Dominic Jackson, a sideways Sean Byrne trying to accelerate his way out of Nelson. Driver who used to race in Caterhams, then moved over to the British GT Championship and is having a great season in the Radical Challenge in 2017, learning an entirely different car that has been getting quicker and quicker and quicker as his knowledge of the car and the setup of it, of course, continues to improve. Dominic Jackson, whose body language still looking very racy indeed for Dominic, who throughout the course of this season we have seen on the podium only once so far this year. That came at Silverstone in the third of the races there, but we've not seen him back on the podium as yet, as we ride on board with Jack Lang looking to try and squeeze his way up the inside of Mark Maloney on the brakes, heading in towards the right-hander at Wilson, and yet place gained for Jack Lang over the number 86 car of Mark Maloney. So the Beijing driver losing a position, and Jack Lang, the championship leader, looking to try and work his way up through the order. The next car that he needs to deal with is going to be the next of the Maloneys, which is Stuart Maloney, car number 16, but he's got to try and close the deficit that exists at the moment and shake off Mark Maloney at the same time, who has just taken the place from. So the number 2 car of Jack Lang, turning his way through the left-hander at Agostini, looking to try and get himself right up onto the coattails of the next of the cars he's tried to attack, Stuart Maloney. Then it's Elliot Goodman will be the next one thereafter that Jack Lang has got firmly fixed in his crosshair. As for Sean Byrne and Richard Baxter, well, they have got themselves together still busy squabbling away over what is at this stage the final place inside the top 6. That is currently being occupied by Dominic Jackson, with Richard Baxter in 7th place, Jason Risher over in 8th place, Christian Jeffries there in 9th place, then it's Elliot Goodman in 10th, Stuart Maloney in 11th place, but under attack from the charging Jack Lang, who is up to 12th from 15th on the grid, so making a bit of progress, but it is taking him a while just to pick the cars off in what is a very, very competitive championship. And Jack Lang might have the momentum here on the run-up towards the bomb hole. Not quite, so the door is closed. Stuart Maloney hangs on to the position, and then from there they feed their way through the right-hander at Corham and try and straighten the car up, get it on the brakes and turn it in towards the left-hander at Murray's. Into the centre straight goes Dominic Jackson, still looking to try and nip at the heels of Mark Richards. However, up towards a braking area for Wilson comes our race leader. Oliver Barker won the first race of the weekend here at Snetterton, and at the moment seems to have the upper hand over Steve Burgess, the reigning champion, the man from Nottingham, who still resides there in second position. So Oliver Barker turns his way through the left-hander at Palmer, up towards Agostini. There's Steve Burgess, number 1, in second place. Jack Manchester, the light blue car, in third place. And then this great fight still going on for 4th and 5th place. Mark Richards still under enormous pressure from Dominic Jackson, who thought about having a look at the inside, but again just wasn't quite close enough, unfortunately. So out of Agostini, using all of the curbs, but no more goes Dominic Jackson. Flicks his way through the left-hander at Hamilton, and then from there they're onto the brakes and up towards the right-hander at Oggy's. Very easy to run wide at Oggy's corner on the exit. We've seen several cars do it over the course of this weekend, but nice and neat and tidy from both Mark Richards and Dominic Jackson, who seems to have good momentum this time heading on to the Bentley straight. He will pick up a bit of a tow from the car ahead, and Mark Richards will be feeling the pressure here. Further down through the order, that's number 28, Elliot Goodman, who is running inside the top 10 at this stage. As for Mark Richards, has he hung on to the place? Dominic Jackson was behind heading onto the Bentley straight. Yeah, he's still behind as they go through Brundle and Nelson and up towards the bomb hole once more. These two squabbling away. They're not particularly holding each other up either, because Jack Manchester, who is there in third place, is not exactly disappearing up the road. There is Jack Manchester, then the two black cars, but the one with the silver stripe is that of Mark Richards. And that is Steve Burgess on the inside of Murray's corner. That was Steve Burgess's car, so there's been a problem for the car that was in second position. So that now means that this fight here is for the final podium place. And Steve Burgess has had some sort of problem heading down in towards Murray's, and well, his car looked rather stranded on the infield section. And there is Steve, the reigning champion, running away from the car. which I've got to say is not particularly in the safest of places. Sean Byrne is still under attack from Richard Baxter. Richard having qualified third quickest, but when the lights went out just didn't get the car off the line, and he's now having to try and spend his valuable time working his way back up through the order, and not that far behind Richard Baxter. He's got to be careful. Is Jason Rishover, a driver we've also seen racing in the LMP3 Cup for P3 Le Mans prototype cars in the UK over the course of this season. So safely out of Agostini go that little trio. Christian Jeffrey is the next car behind. Then it's the orange car, Jack Lang. So Jack making a bit more progress, qualified only 15th, his second fastest time from qualifying, setting the grid for this one, and is now just starting to work his way up through the order. Locked brakes down at Agostini. That's Konstantin Gukiev as he tries to have a quick look at the inside of Barry Liversidge. Onto the Bentley straight goes Sean Byrne, raises his hand aloft, and not entirely sure why he raised his hand aloft there, Sean Byrne. Can't quite see any obvious reason as to what the problem is, other than, right, probably a safety car coming out, I would have thought. Yes, Steve Burgess's car in a dangerous place. Safety car boards are indeed out, and that means that just as Oliver Barker had thought he'd made good his escape following the retirement of Steve Burgess, then surely that's now going to mean that Oliver Barker will have Jack Manchester very close for company when we get the restart of this race underway. So there is Oliver Barker. He is the race leader under safety car conditions here at Snetterton, and now absolutely behind him, yeah, you can see the light blue car of Jack Manchester. So all of the advantage that Oliver Barker had has been whittled down to absolutely nothing as the field all bunch themselves back up under safety car, weaving from side to side to try and maintain the temperature in the controlled Dunlop slick tyres that all of these cars run. As into the pit lane comes the safety car, which means that Oliver Barker can get the race back underway here at Snetterton. Over the start-finish line, he's about to charge his way, and it looks like it's a good restart as well. Daylight between himself and Jack Manchester already. Dominic Jackson there in third place, Mark Richards in fourth, and Sean Byrne still under pressure from Richard Baxter for fifth and sixth places. They were squabbling away before the safety car period, and they're back at it again now. Through the right-hand hairpin at Wilson goes Oliver Barker. There's Jack Manchester slithering his way out of the hairpin. In third place is Dominic Jackson. But Mark Richards is ever closer to him as they head up towards Palmer. Shows the nose of the car up the inside of Dominic Jackson, who looks as though he's got a little bit of damage, hasn't he, on that front right-hand corner of the number 4 car. And Dominic Jackson desperate to try and hang on to a podium place. We saw him on the podium in race 1 of the weekend. Mark Richards having a quick look up the inside though, and he's able to work his way through, and up into third position goes Mark Richards on the way in towards Agostini. Dominic Jackson tries to fight back on the way out. Jack Lang also looking to try and make a bit more progress as well. He's trying to pick the pocket of Jason Rishover, and I think probably gained the place there as well, Jack Lang. So keep an eye towards that orange car, because now that the field has bunched themselves up again, it's given Jack Lang yet a good opportunity to go through and take that place. So Jack Lang's next target is going to be Richard Baxter. Out of Williams, onto the Bentley straight they'll go. Oliver Barker leads, Jack Manchester in second place. The dust being raised, I think, by Jason Rishover coming out of Williams in the background. Third is Mark Richards, but under pressure again from the all-black car of Dominic Jackson as those two turn their way through the left-hander at Brundle and then up towards the right-hander at Nelson. Mark Richards in third, Dominic Jackson in fourth place. Richard Baxter sits there in fifth place, and up to sixth now, the championship leader, Jack Lang, carving his way through the order. The safety car helping his cause as well to bunch the field up, and he's got himself inside the top 6 for the first time at the wheel of the orange number 2 car. There he goes. Then it's Jason Rishover, and then the next of the cars is going to be Mark Maloney, Christian Jeffrey, Stuart Maloney, and then it looks as though it's Spencer Bourne, but all of the field, of course, very tightly packed again as a result of the safety car period. Through right-hander at Murray's goes a squabble between Elliot Goodman and Barry Liversidge, who's just about to lose out to Sean Byrne. So Sean Byrne has dropped down through the order with some sort of issue and is now having to work his way back up through. Black and white warning flags going out for some cars as well with regards to circuit limits. They must stay within the confines of the circuit, i.e. the white lines. There's a good little fight going on between the drivers who come from the Caribbean. This is Mark Maloney under pressure from Christian Jeffrey, and then Stuart Maloney. And they are fighting for places just outside of the top 6 currently, in something like 8th, 9th and 10th positions, as Dominic Jackson has managed to get himself back through and ahead of Mark Richards once more. So back up to third goes Dominic Jackson. Back down to fourth has gone Mark Richards, who's now under pressure from the blue car of Richard Baxter, who has got ever closing on him, the orange machine now in the hands of Jack Lang. Runner-up in last year's championship, Jack Lang, leading this year's championship and looking to try and close up, because his main championship rival, which is Oliver Barker, is leading this race at this stage, and of course his other championship rival, Steve Burgess, is out of the race So Jack Lang really looking to try and gain as many championship points as he can. Oliver Barker, though, stretching the lead advantage between himself and Jack Manchester in the blue car. And then Dominic Jackson in third place is a busy chap here because he's got Mark Richards not that far behind and Richard Baxter, but he's looking to try and close in on a consecutive podium here. He had one earlier on in the season at Silverstone. He had one earlier on this weekend at Snetterton. For the man from Lincoln, he would dearly like to try and gain his third podium of the season if he can. Through Corham, up towards the braking area for Murray's goes the trio for third, fourth and fifth position. Richard Baxter really closing on the brakes onto the coattails of Mark Richards, but nothing doing again. He's going to pick up a little bit of a tow as they head onto the Senna straight. The time and options and possibly ideas running out here for Richard Baxter as to what he might be able to do. So they work their way up towards Richie's corner, safely through the right-hander, whilst up towards the right-hand hairpin comes Oliver Barker in the lead of the race. He won the first race of the weekend and is potentially heading towards a double victory here at Snetterton. And what are pretty ideal conditions, really. Warm, dry, a little bit of sun, but not too hot so as to affect the performance of the cars or the tyres. And the squabble still going on between Mark Richards and Richard Baxter, but right on Richard Baxter's coattails now is the championship leading car, number 2, in the hands of Jack Lang. So Mark Richards, Richard Baxter and Jack Lang all busy having to stick their elbows out now and squabble over what will be 4th, 5th and 6th position. Oliver Barker equally as much in the lead of the race. Looks as though he's been caught by Jack Manchester a shade over the course of the last lap or so. He turns his way out of Oggies, the race leader, and heads up towards what will be the right-hander at Williams onto the Bentley straight. Yeah, the amount of daylight has definitely come down between first and second places. Dominic Jackson there in third place, and then this trio fighting over third, fourth and fifth. Mark Richards under pressure from Richard Baxter, who picks up the tow this time, heading down the Bentley straight. Is he going to be close enough so as to sneak out and have a look on the run in towards Brundle or Nelson? Well, we'll find out in a few moments' time. He's sitting firmly in the slipstream, but no, he just didn't close enough as they came down the Bentley straight. So the order still remains exactly the same. Richard Baxter's now in that dichotomy. He needs to attack and possibly defend at the same time, because Jack Lang has moved himself into prime position here so as to maybe have a little nibble. Certainly won't do it as they head round through Corham. I don't think he's close enough as they head towards Murray, but certainly look at Jack Manchester. He has really closed up onto the coattails of the race leader, and Oliver Barker is starting to feel the pressure a little bit here as they head onto the Senna straight, up towards the start-finish line where the checkered flag waves, and it is a double win for Oliver Barker in the first 2 races of the weekend here at Snetterton. He claims his second win of the weekend from Jack Manchester and Dominic Jackson. Mark Richards, Richard Baxter and Jack Lang will complete the top 6, but for Oliver Barker, well, that means he has closed the gap on his main championship rivals. Steve Burgess, of course, having retired from the race, and Jack Lang finishing behind him. Confirmation of the results then. Oliver Barker claims the win from Jack Manchester in second place and Dominic Jackson in third. Mark Richards with fourth, ahead of Richard Baxter. Jack Lang, Jason Rishover and Mark Maloney completing the top 8, ahead of Christian Jeffrey and Stuart Maloney. That is the top 10 in race 2 of the Radical Challenge. The drivers are heading towards the podium. A delighted Oliver Barker, with his second win of the weekend, is on the top step of the podium at Snetterton. Let's hear the top 3.
In the high-speed straights, I started getting vibration through the car and I knew something wasn't right. And then I just started losing the front end of the car. The grip totally went. And fortunately just managed to hang on until the end. If there'd been another lap, I don't think I could have done.
Yeah, it was a bit close, wasn't it, at the end?
It was close, yeah.
But you got the victory, and this is really good for the championship. If you can carry this into the feature race later, you could leave here leading the championship.
Yeah, things are looking good. A lot of points behind coming into this weekend, and we're clawing them back slowly but surely.
Really wanted to nail that start, just see what I could do, and yeah, got it perfect. Same as last race, but this time managed to keep onto the podium. Yeah.
Just had a really scrappy first few laps, which was a shame because then the front guys got away, but by the time we came back at the end, it was too late.
Yeah, I mean, even after the restart, you were embroiled in all sorts of fighting there that you could have easily have been sort of another 2 places back, but you weren't going to let that podium slip, were you?
No, it was good. It was there, then it was gone, then it was there again, so good.
That's all from Snetterton for the moment, but don't disappear because we'll be back with race 3, the pit stop race, very shortly.